Hello and good evening to everybody. Today we are here on another episode of Cinnamon Chat with Nethila, where today our topic is can anyone become a CEO? So our special guest today is Mr.Sarinda Unamboowe, and he's the former CEO of MAS Krida and the current CEO of Arvind Activewear. So without further ado, I would like to bring onto the stage Mr. Sarinda. Good evening,
Hi,
sir.
Nithila. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm doing
Very
good.
good, thank you. Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So I have a lot of questions to ask you because I'm very curious about, because you're very famous.
I don't know about famous, but ask away.
First, I want to know about your family and your school life. Like, what were you like when you were a kid? Because I myself, being a 14-year-old boy, I would like to know how you were during those days.
So my family, I have one sister who is a lot older than me. She's about 8 years older than me. So she and I, when we were growing up, we grew up almost in two different households because my father was a planter. So I was on the estate and she was in Colombo with my aunt going to school in Colombo. So I grew up very much like an only child for a big portion of my life. So I'm a person who can keep myself occupied on my own. I had no problems being, reading books or playing on my own or whatever it may be. I'm quite happy in my own company. That is one thing that I had developed at a very early age. My school life revolved primarily around sport. So from the time I was probably 9 or 10 years old, I was playing competitive sport. I played multiple sports for my school, and that dominated my life all the way into my 20s. So the early stage of my life was all revolving around sports.
So, can I ask what kind of sports?
Well, for my school, I played rugby, cricket, and athletics. So I was a part of the teams for those three sports. Cricket and athletics were the two sports that I played most, and then I played rugby also in my last couple of years. So the 3 seasons used to go pretty much the whole year through. So one season went into the next season, and sometimes there was an overlap and there were always conflicts, but it was something that, when we were in school, we were able to balance. And that was many, many years ago. We were able to balance it a lot more than kids get to do right now. So that was the obsession that I had. I was obsessed by playing sport.
I was definitely expecting you to say cricket because cricket is also popular in almost all schools. Cricket is very popular.
Absolutely. I was fortunate enough to play a lot of cricket and with some very, very talented cricketers of that time.
You played with other talented cricketers as in?
Yes. I played against people like Arjun Ranatunga and Roshan Mahanama, Aravind, all those guys. That was my vintage. So we played against each other a lot. And I also played for Colombo schools with people like Aravind and Roshan and many people like Kapile Vijayagunawardena and Jerome Jayaratna, many people like that. Hiran Kure, who was the head of Jet Wing, he was a very good cricketer. He was also a part of that vintage. Ashley De Silva, Ravi De Silva, lots of people.
And you say you're not famous.
I just played school cricket, that's all. From there I stopped.
So you were very athletic during school. You played a lot of sports.
Yes, I did.
Did you have any special leadership roles in school?
Actually, no, I didn't. I was a part of these teams, but I was never, I never captained any of these teams or anything like that. So I can't say that I was a born leader or, somebody who led teams from the start. I was very much a team player. I loved being a part of a team. I enjoyed being in a team, working with a team, working, with other people to make something happen. So I think, everybody talks about the things that sports teaches you and how you develop various skills. That is obvious, but it is a skill that does help you go forward in life. So whether it's a sport or whether you're a part of an interact club or a drama society or whatever it may be, that skill that you learn working with other people, combining multiple talents to make something happen is something that can help you right through your life.
Okay. So even though you didn't play any leadership roles in school, you're still a really good leader as of today.
Well, I think I'd like to think that I'm a better than average leader. I don't know about being very good. That's not for me to answer, but for people who have worked with me to answer. But I certainly have been fortunate to have had some great teams to work with and in some great organizations, and been a part of some special organizations, special companies. So yeah, I've enjoyed some success along the way.
We actually have a comment here from somebody. They don't really have a name. I'm assuming they're joining from some sort of account that isn't showing the name. But good evening to you, to whoever you are.
I thought they were going to scold me.
No.
So anonymous abuser was going to come online, a troll.
So when you were younger, did you have any role models? Like not role models, as in like, who did you want to be when you grew up?
So, Natila, we all have various people we aspire to be like, when we are growing up, whether it's your father or uncle or cousin or something like that. I had several because for me, again, being obsessed by sport, I had several people that I looked up to in terms of the sport I was doing. So there were many people that I admired and wanted to be like. So, for example, sportsmen in my own school. When I was just entering school, my cousin, a gentleman by the name of Jagat Fernando, who now owns Jagro, was a brilliant cricketer. He had scored 100 in the Royal Tomian, and he was a brilliant rugby player. So I wanted to be like him. A lot of what I aspired to be was like him. And then there were other people that I looked up to, Sri Lankan cricketers, Sri Lankan rugby players, whatever it was, but a lot of it revolved around sport. So growing up, a lot of my role models were sports people. And I would try to copy their batting styles or their wicket keeping styles or their rugby styles or whatever it may be. But it aspired me to become better at what I did, because one thing is, a lot of people have natural talent towards the sport sometimes, right? And sometimes they can be naturally athletic. That means they are agile, they're flexible, they're fast, they're strong. Those things could be there, but they not be the most brilliant batsman or the most brilliant bowler or the most brilliant wicket. So those things, sometimes if you have that base skill, you really have to work hard towards. So I was one of those people. I had average talent, average skill, but I had a very high work ethic. So I used to work hard to try and achieve these, try to become like these people.
I can understand what you're saying, because for me personally, it wasn't sports. I wasn't that good at sports. I didn't have that base learning. I had to start completely from the beginning and climb my way to the top. Back in the day, I would play badminton with my dad every day, so I could get better at playing. So every day, when I was about 7-8 years old, coming out to the yard, playing badminton every day. Every day, always trying to get better than him, but he was always better than me. But for me personally, music was the thing for me. Music, Western music particularly. Not singing, more like instruments.
Right.
I started piano, and then I naturally, like, the second I grabbed onto it, I couldn't let go of it. I kept playing and playing, and got better. Same with guitar.
Right. That's brilliant. That's the one thing that I regret. The one thing I regret is my mother was insistent that I learn to play the piano. And I played the piano from the time I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. I learned to play the piano. I used to play it quite regularly. But by the time I was about 11 or 12, maybe a little older than that, I just completely stopped, because I felt it was getting in the way of my sport, and I had to go for piano lessons and take exams and study, and it was getting in the way of my sport. So I started getting obsessed by sport and completely neglected that. And later in life, that is one of the very few things that I regret that I didn't continue. It would be lovely to be able to sit down and play a musical instrument, because I love music. I love to listen to music, and I'd love to be able to play something.
It's never too late.
Yeah, I know. So that is one thing. Now that I have moved to India and I live pretty much alone most of the time, it's one thing that I've kind of given myself a challenge of trying to learn an instrument.
So when did you realize that you had leadership qualities? Now, you said you didn't have exceptional leadership qualities, but there had to have been a time where you realized, like, you were a good leader, like in the classroom. Or were there any moments that you realized that I'm a good leader, I could be a leader? When was the time that you have realized that?
It certainly wasn't in the classroom. In the classroom, I wasn't really leading. I was leading from the back. I was in the tail end of the classroom. So leading in classrooms was not my strong suit. But I think the important thing here is that all the skills kind of evolve in you. Nobody is there are people, like, say for example, we'll take an example. Lots of people are taken into family businesses, we'll say, and because the father is the chairman or the uncle is the chairman or whatever, they are put into senior slots and they become automatic leaders in those roles. Now, I believe that leadership is something that you have to earn. You may have the skill in you, you may have the natural talent in you, but
You have to earn other people's
you
respect.
have to earn other people's respect. Just by virtue of the fact that you're in the bloodline doesn't mean that you can straight away slot into a top role and earn everybody's respect. So I think people have to work their way up. In my case, I never took any leadership roles as such in my organization till I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s, when I was leading a marketing team first, then a sales team first, then entire organizations, marketing, sales, and like a stockbroking company, all the sales side of it. So it wasn't like you went from being a junior executive to CEO overnight. It was something that happened along the way. And I was really fortunate that I had very good coaches. Like, my boss was for a long time, for about 10 years, was Mr. Ajit Gunawardana, who was the deputy chairman of John Keels. And he was a person, and he's somebody you should get on your chat show and have a chat with. Very interesting guy to speak with. So he was a person who used to teach me a lot of stuff about, controlling my anger, controlling my temper, letting other people, talents come up. He used to always say this thing: hire people smarter than you and let them do their work. He used to always say, hire people smarter than you. And that is something that has always stayed with me. I've always looked at hiring people who are smarter than. Now, hiring people smarter than you is one thing, but you have to hire them and then let them do their work. Otherwise, what happens sometimes is when people are in positions of authority, they hire smart people and then try to tell them how to do their work, which is nonsense. The whole purpose of hiring smart people is so that you allow them the freedom to use their intelligence to be able to perform. So my journey towards becoming a CEO was gradual. It was, marketing manager, senior manager, assistant general manager, director. It kind of transformed like that. The first real leadership role I played was when I was running a chain of supermarkets. I ran Keel Super for a while, and from there I moved into MAS as a CEO and set up an organization from base upwards. So that was also quite challenging because you had to recruit people, hire people, train people, and I went into an industry I didn't know anything about. So the first real CEO role I went into was into an industry I had no clue about. I didn't know anything about sewing or running an apparel. So I had to hire people who really had that experience, listen to them without getting too influenced by them. As in, there was a direction the organization was going in, and I had to ensure that it was going in that direction rather than get pulled in 20 different directions.
Yeah.
So that evolution is something that you have to be open to learning. You have to be open to listening. Those are very, very important. If you think I'm the CEO, I'm the boss here, I need to show everybody how everything is done, you're doomed. The company is doomed. You're doomed. Everybody else is doomed. If you have a CEO like that, just get out of that company and go somewhere else.
So since you say it like that, I'm assuming you weren't the type of CEO. You were much better in understanding.
I don't know. Again, there have been times where I have been a total ass. I have been an absolute jackass at times as a leader, But I think I'd like to think, I hope, I see some of my colleagues. I saw one name popping up of a colleague of mine, who I'd like to think that if I was wrong, I admitted I was wrong and I was willing to listen to other people. But at the same time, I've done some really stupid things. So, we all make mistakes, but the thing about mistakes is you need to learn from your mistakes. You need to learn from your mistakes and make sure you don't do it again.
Okay. So learn from your mistakes. Now we actually have some comments over here. Mr. Udayanga, thank you very much. It's nice to see a passionate leader. So must have been working in your company.
Yeah. Hi, Udayanga.
You also have Mr. Pasan, great conversation. Thank you very much. Mr. Nithila Kularatna, insightful and fascinating conversation so far. Mr. Stillness Andrewan, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining in to listen to the conversation. So my next question to you, Mr. Unamboowe. So were you a straight A student?
No, I was. I wasn't. So okay. Let me qualify this. In the first few years of my school life, I was in the top five of my class all the time. So my parents thought I was pretty smart, and they used to always expect me to be in the top two or three of the class, which was fine. Then I discovered sports. Then I dropped somewhere to the middle of the class, and by the time I passed my O levels, I went into my A levels. I was in the bottom 5% of the class. So I barely got through school. I'm not going to boast and say that I got through school with flying colors. I didn't. I think Royal. I was at Royal. I think they kicked me out because they didn't want me to stay there any longer. Then I got into university on an athletic scholarship. So I went to the States on a scholarship to run as an athlete. So that's how I got into university. Otherwise, I wouldn't have seen the inside of a university unless I was working there. So I managed to get into university. My grades at university also weren't anything fabulous. They were marginal at best, but I graduated. And I'm going to a bit longer on this point because I think it's very current and it's very useful for people right now. I barely made it through university, but I had a hell of a lot of fun. That's one. Two, I made a lot of friends and I learned to deal with people from multiple cultures. And more than anything, I went to school long before you were born, Nethila. I went to school in 1984 to 1988 to university, right? There were no fax machines.
What machines?
There were no fax machines. If you haven't heard what a fax machine is, this is way before. Okay, so there were no fax machines. There were no mobile phones for sure, and even a telephone conversation was very expensive. So a phone call was maybe I spoke to my parents maybe once in 2 months, maybe once in 3 months. That was a maximum of 3 minutes because that was the affordable level of the call. Then we used to write letters. So the letter would take 15 days to come to Sri Lanka, then a day or two for them to respond, another 15 days to come back. So if I had a problem, I had to write a letter to my parents. I didn't get a response for a month. So I learned that there was a tremendous sense of responsibility on yourself, independence, and that complete cutting of the umbilical cord and you going away from your parents into another country and being all on your own and independent. Students now, my two sons, they are in their 30s now, and my two sons, when they went to university, we were doing WhatsApp calls and chatting with each other and talking to each other every day. And so you never feel like you're that broken away and you're all alone in some strange place. So there are pros and cons. When I graduated, I had a decision to make. And that was 1988. If you read about the history of 1988, 89, 90, it was one of the bloodiest periods in the country. There was the LTT on one side, the JVP on the other side. There was chaos in the country. There were literally fires on a daily basis. People were being killed. There was chaos in Sri Lanka. All the universities had been closed for about 2 or 3 years. There were no universities open at that time. Next, everybody who went overseas to get their studies, nobody came back. So if you're talking about the brain drain that was happening right now, that is happening right now. Lots of people are leaving the country right now. It was very similar to that, probably worse. I decided to come back. Now, what that did was when I came back with a very mediocre grade point average, with a very mediocre degree, very general degree, I came back into an environment that had hardly any graduates, hardly anybody with a qualification. So it created opportunities for me to slot into organizations at levels that I would never have under normal circumstances. That decision I took to come back to Sri Lanka was the best thing I did in my life at that time. Because I came in at a time where, you know what they say, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I came back at a time where nobody had degrees, nobody was going to school. I came back and suddenly here, Chandi has come back with a degree. Of course, my grade point average was the lowest possible. but the timing was right. It worked very well in my favor. So what I'm trying to say here, and for anybody who's listening, is while everybody is leaving the country at the moment and looking to, go to Canada or USA or New Zealand or Australia or Finland or wherever they're going, realize that opportunities are opening up in this country right now that you would not have got if everybody stayed. You have opportunities opening up right now that you can take advantage of. So don't be panicking saying, I have to leave this country. Sri Lanka is still a fabulous place to work and live in. And I believe that we will come out of, we are on our way out of this mess that we got ourselves into. And here's an opportunity for a lot of us who are bold to take do well in life from here on, build the platform for your life. I see a lot of similarities between 88, 89 and what we are seeing right now, minus the violence that we saw during that period.
So,
So long answer to a very short question.
no, long answers are appreciated because can get the most out of those. So we have a comment here from Mr. Suru. How honest. So people are appreciating how honest you are. I'm assuming this is about your grades. So at the time
Thank
when
you.
at the time when you got into your first job, because you said because you were at the time, you said Chandi has come back with a degree, because you got a degree and nobody in the country had that kind of experience. So during the time that you got your first job, did you have any role models at the time in that certain field that you were working in?
No. So I have to tell you a little story about that as well. By the time I came back, my father was holding a fairly senior mercantile position in a company in Sri Lanka, right? So he always thought I was an absolute bloody mutt, and he's like, this bugger not going to do anything with his life. So let me set everything up for him. So when I came back, he had got interviews at John Keys, Haley's, Aitken Spence, all these companies. He had lined up interviews and said, now you go and talk to these gentlemen. I've spoken to them. Let's see whether you can get a job. So I was determined not to go down that route. I decided I'm going to get my job on my own. And also I was determined at that time, the starting salary for management trainees at those companies was 1,250 rupees. That was the starting salary, right? So I decided that I was going to get a job for 5,000 rupees. 5,000 rupees was a lot of money at that time.
Did you get it?
So I can remember telling my father, I'm not going. Sorry?
Yeah, continue. I'd like to wait. I'd like to wait for the answer. Continue.
So I told my father, I'm not going for the interviews. I said, I'm going to find my own job. And he said, you're never going to find a bloody job. And, had the big showdown at home. And I said, fine, that's okay. Even if I starve, I'm going to find my own job and I'll find my way. So I never had, as I told you, Netila, my whole life revolved around sports. So I never had this academic kind of outlook to what I wanted to do in life or what kind of job I wanted. All I knew is I wanted to earn enough money to live comfortably. So at that time, my focus, and that is something that I have always had in my life. I have never measured my life by what my title is, what company I'm working for, or anything like that. My life has been measured, the success of my life has been measured by the success of my family, how close I am to my sons, the quality of my life, my health, what I have as a life. For me, my career has been the journey. And the fact that I love my career and I enjoy what I do, that has been a massive bonus. But that came late in life. So early on, I just wanted to find a job that I could earn enough money to live comfortably. So cut a long story short, I went for management training interviews to some of the foreign companies. At that time, there were foreign banks. There were, IBM was here. There were lots of organizations like that. And believe it or not, because again, there was no real competition at that time, I got shortlisted in these places and I finally got a job at American Express Bank for 7,500 rupees. That was more than, senior executives weren't earning that at that time. It was unbelievable. I could afford a house. I could afford a car, not car, but I could afford a house. And I got married very, very young. I was 25 when I got married. So the job was in a bank. I didn't have a clue about banking. I didn't have a clue about finance. I hated finance. And I got this job. So it was 3 years of me actually trying to figure out what the hell I was doing and learning about balance sheets and profit and loss statements and making a career out of that. Of course, then I made some decisions and moved out of there into other careers. But the first job I got was complete fluke and completely based on me just looking for something that paid the most. So banking, if somebody asked me whether I wanted to be a banker, I would be like, are you mad? But that's what I ended up doing. I started off in banking.
Anything that paid well, you quickly grabbed.
Absolutely. I went for the money. I had no ambitions in terms of what I wanted to do or anything like that. I just wanted to have enough money to be independent.
Very honest answer. So, did you ever think of becoming a CEO? Now, you said if somebody asked you if you wanted to work in a bank, you'd say, are you mad? So, What about CEO? What were your thoughts on becoming the CEO?
No, I didn't. I mean, obviously, I wanted to progress in my career. I wanted to do better and better. And, I was, I have always been a very competitive person. When I play a game or, whatever I do, I want to be good at.
The best.
If I'm not good at it, well, best in at least the category I'm playing in. I didn't have aspirations of being the best in the world at anything at that time because I didn't have that talent or the skill. Right now, I believe that I can set up organizations that are the best at something in the world. There are now, for example, the organizations we set up when I was in the apparel sector in Sri Lanka. Both organizations were the best at what we did. We were the best swimwear manufacturer in the world at one time, and we were one of the best sportswear manufacturers in the world at a time. So in that way, I still have been able to compete and now compete at a higher level. Whereas when I was competing in a sport or something like that, it was, to be the best at under 15 or under 16 or 19 or whatever. But I think it's important that you have a target and try to get better at what you do on a regular basis. You need to compete with yourself and try to strive to get better at anything that you're doing. So while I was an executive, I wanted to become an assistant manager. Then I wanted to become a manager. I wanted to kind of push the boundaries a little.
And eventually hit
CEO came later.
CEO.
Yeah, CEO came later. But when I say later, I was a CEO at MAS when I was I think I was 34 or 35. Yeah. So that's how CEO kind of evolved into that. I kind of evolved into that role. But again, because I came into that patch where there weren't too many qualified people and too many, where I came into that sweet spot almost, my progress was pretty fast. From between 25 and 35, I went from being junior executive to a CEO.
So what kind of support did you get from your previous managers, when you were growing that fast and you were eventually getting through these big titles that surpassed even them? What was the support you got from them, if there was any at all?
Again, I don't know whether I surpassed them, but I certainly was on a fast track, because if you look at I worked 10 years at John Keel's. During that period, I had this fairly fast trajectory because my boss was a very supportive individual, Mr. Ajit Gunawardhan, who I told. And at that time, John Keel's was also going through a very steep growth curve. So the combination of me being there at the time where the company was growing aggressively, that also helped me kind of go. It's like I was interviewing somebody yesterday for a job role in my new organization. And when she asked me, what's my career progression, I said, look, think of yourself as a cork and you're in an empty glass. And I'm going to pour water into this glass. What's going to happen? You're the cork. You're going to rise with the level of the company. So when the company is starting at ground zero and you join the organization new as a management trainee or, executive there, as the organization grows, you have an opportunity and advantage of being one of the first movers in there to go with it. So I was supported a lot by people like Ajit. And I also worked for two very, very inspiring leaders. One was Mr. Ken Balendra, who was an inspiring leader at John Keel's at the time when he was chairman. And Mahesh Amalian, who's been a wonderful, role model for lots of leaders in Sri Lanka and globally, and set up a $2 billion apparel empire out of nothing. So he's a visionary leader, and he has a lot of attributes that I have been able to learn from. I learned a lot from Mr. Balendra. I learned a lot from Mr. Ajit Gunawardhan. And also I had a mentor who was my cricket coach when I was in school, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Vijay Mallasekara, who was like a father to me. And he was a person who not just guided me in my career, but guided me as well. Gave me a lot of a balance in a lot of things that I did. So I was fortunate. I was very lucky.
We actually have a few comments here. So, Mr. Ranga Gunaratna, thank you for encouraging us to stay here even with these economic conditions. Mr. Sarina Yajapriya, very insightful point on prioritizing health, life and family over the titles and the company that you are working for.
Absolutely. You have to realize that the most important thing is your personal life, your family, your life, your friends.
Mr. Nithila Kunaratna, as a 16-year-old youth. Okay, I said Mr. So maybe I should say Ayya. Nitila here. So your advice to the opportunity within the country is much needed and appreciated. This is something we as youth of the country must consider.
Absolutely. Because if all of you all abandon the country, where is this country going to go?
Nowhere. Mr.
Exactly.
Pasan, to become a CEO one day, what are the qualities that you have to improve by yourself? Glad if you can briefly describe. Yeah, so the audience has a lot of questions.
So, let me just address that. I think one thing is, again, I said this at the start, is your recruitment, the people that you recruit, the people that you hire as a team. Don't be scared and don't don't feel insecure to hire people who are smarter than you. You're the guide, you're the mentor, you're the person who sends the company in the right direction. Hire people smarter than you, but make sure that you give them room to work. Make sure that you're giving them room to bring out the best in them. And one of the things that you really have to develop, and this is some area that I was very weak in, and some of my colleagues used to point it out to me, is I wouldn't listen. And when you're listening to somebody speaking, even on a call, you're listening with your body, your eyes, and your ears. Somebody is if you're just like this somewhere and somebody is talking to you, you're not paying attention to that person. If you're looking at everything around the room, you're not paying attention to that person. So you're disrespectful to that person, whatever that person is saying. It's really important to have eye contact, listen to the person, turn your body towards the person, and give that person the respect of your time and listen to what they have to say. Because if you're not listening to understand what they are saying, you're not really hearing what they're saying. So you're missing out on a lot in your decision-making process. A CEO's head should be like a curry. Let me elaborate that. Somebody should put the meat into it. Somebody should put the sugar into it. Somebody should put the chili into it. Somebody should put the curry powder into it. Somebody must put the polkiri into it. When it's mixed up nicely in your head, you can come out with a beautiful finished product. You don't have to come up with all the solutions. The solutions will come if you are listening to everybody, absorbing it, and through your experience and through your hopefully intelligence and experience, you put it all together and say, okay, here's the finished product. But listen, Hasan, I hope that helped.
I have a very important question. I've been meaning to ask this from you for a long time. What does a CEO do?
I must try to figure that out. I must try to figure that one out, Nitila. So I don't know whether there is like a fixed role for a CEO, what they're supposed to do. I think the CEO has to do different things at different times. For example, I'm setting up a company right now, and there is absolutely ground zero. We have a white sheet of paper. We are starting to draw painting on that. So what am I doing? Right now, I am in Bangalore, and I'm driving around from town to town looking for property to build a factory on. I'm looking at hiring a good team. So what the primary role that I have right now is there is a vision that we have articulated for the shareholders of the company and the leadership with myself. We have articulated, this is our vision, this is what we want to create. Now it's my job as a CEO to create that. So I need to now work on getting all the right teammates together, team members together, put all the ingredients together, deliver this perfectly created curry to the people who are waiting to enjoy it. So for me, it is about delivering stakeholder value. Everybody who works for us needs to feel value to themselves as individuals. They need to have a purpose of why they're coming to work every morning. They need to be paid well. They need to be treated with respect. They need to be doing something they enjoy doing and working towards taking an organization towards a special North Star, whatever that North Star may be. So I have to articulate a vision, and then we have to make sure that we're going on towards that vision. Thank you, Udayanga.
CEO's mind should be like a curry. Okay, I'll keep that. I'll keep a mental note of that for the rest of my life. CEO's life. And maybe
actually, I just thought of that myself. I just thought of it myself. It kind of came to me while we were talking, but it makes a little bit of sense. That's what it boils down to. You should absorb everything from everybody else.
Maybe someday when somebody asks me, I can say, somebody I interviewed once told me, CEO's mind should be like a curry.
Yep, that's what it should be.
So can anybody become a CEO?
I believe they can. I believe trust me, if I could have become a CEO, anybody can become a CEO. Right? If you ask any of my classmates whether when I was in school whether they thought I would be a CEO, they probably die laughing, especially my teachers. But I think you can, but you have to believe in yourself. You have to back yourself. You have to really believe in yourself. And it's not going to, you can't like sit in one place and say, I want to become a CEO one day, and it's not going to happen. You have to build the skill set. You have to gather the experience, the knowledge. You have to have a thirst for knowledge. And in the changing world right now, how many people know what AI is going to do next? How many people are really looking at that space and thinking, I need to understand AI? I need to understand what AI is capable of doing. So, what if I'm designing a factory and a whole organization right now that is completely ignoring the progress AI has made? I am developing a dinosaur that has already died, it's extinct. So, I need to understand that. And I'm 59 years old. So if I don't understand, and if I haven't learned, and if I haven't experienced all this change, and if I'm not listening to experts and getting experts to work with me, what am I going to create? I'm going to create a company that is already obsolete. So that learning is continuous. Nithil, at 14, what you're doing, I hadn't even dreamt of doing. I wouldn't even imagine. At 14, I was just wondering about, when am I going to score another 10 runs or 15 runs or take a catch up? I don't know, go out, smoke a cigarette or something like that. Those are things that I was doing at your age. You're doing incredible stuff. But if you stop learning, if you stop this thirst of knowledge, then what happens? You become redundant. So all of us, whether we are CEOs or, pre-O level students or whoever we are, that thirst for knowledge, the hunger to learn needs to be there. And you were telling me you read encyclopedias. That is unbelievably, that's brilliant. And look at the knowledge base that we have. You pick up your phone, you can Google anything you want to Google, and the knowledge is there. Whether you want to learn about AI, or whether you want to learn about a frog in Costa Rica, or whether you want to learn about cloud formations or a Mars landing, you can access that information like this. But what are we doing on our mobile devices? Most of the time, we're surfing the web. We're surfing social media. We're checking out to see what's happening on Facebook, Instagram. That's what we're doing. Twitter, we're fighting with people on Twitter. We're wasting time sometimes. It's really important for us to declutter our head and focus on what we do. Our attention spans need to be developed. And we need to make sure. So becoming a CEO is one thing, but even if you become a CEO, to stay relevant is like becoming an athlete. You have to continuously practice. If you're a good cricketer, you have to continuously practice.
Consistency.
It's the same. Absolutely. And you have to get better and better and better. And as you get older, it becomes challenging because you have this tendency to think, I know all this shit and I've been through this, and you can't think like that. You have to think, Nethila knows more about this subject than I do, and I should learn from you. I can't think, I'm 59, he's 14, what the hell is he going to teach me? Ravish, you have more to teach me than I can teach you, possibly. I should be open to that. That is important. Can anybody be a CEO? The answer is yes. Should anybody be a CEO? The answer is no, because there are some people who should not be CEOs. Because they're arrogant, they're small-minded, they're not willing to listen to people, they are bossy, those people should not be CEOs.
Not only that, we also need all our doctors and our mechanics and engineers as well.
Absolutely.
So, what leadership qualities are important to be a CEO?
I think you have to, the first thing that I feel is a very soft skill, right? In that you need to be able to inspire people. You need to be able to be a storyteller. You need to be able to stand in front of a crowd and tell people a story that really inspires them and says, this is the way I want, this is the organization I want to be in. This is a fantastic story. I want to be a part of this. That's one. Second thing is you need to be honest and authentic. You need to be transparent. You need to be able to Be who you are. So don't have to act like this bloody tough macho guy. If you're sad, you're sad. If you're weak, you're weak. If you don't know, you must say you don't know. People need to see you as a human being who they can approach and speak with you and talk to you. Just because you're an organization, head of a $500 billion company or a $1 billion company doesn't make you like, oh, I don't need to talk to these people. I don't need to deal with the scene. That's rubbish. You need to be able to communicate with your entire organization. Humility is absolutely essential, and the more senior you go in an organization, the more humble you should be. Sometimes I look at little signs in people, right? Little signs in people. For example, we're at a restaurant and somebody comes and serves a cup of tea. How do you take that cup of tea? Do you just wait for it to be put and then start drinking it? Or do you take it from that person's hand, or you let that person and turn around, look the person in the eye and say thank you? Little gestures like that show your level of humility and how much, treat people with respect and they
treating people the way you wanted to be treated by them. So what advice would you give your younger self, now that you're in a big spot?
Maybe eat less hot butter cuttlefish, because I ended up having heart surgery a few years ago because I definitely ate too much of that stuff. I would have paid more attention to learning when I was younger. There was a period between about 30 to 40 where I was very distracted with other things in life. And I think I wasted a good period in my life, and I would have paid more attention to my health during that period. Now I do again, but during that period, that was difficult.
So we have another comment here. I started following Nethila after searching for his Masspreneurs webpage. Having the same idea in my mind, I have things to learn from this young genius. Keep it up. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I agree totally.
Thank you very much. So another question. Now, I know that being a CEO is a very, very important role. It's a very busy role. You're always busy. It's a big responsibility. How do you manage your work-life balance with such a big role?
So this whole thing about CEOs being super busy and have to be, doing a million things at the same time, I don't quite buy that, right? I think being a CEO, one of the advantages you have is that you can manage your time better than other people because you're the boss. If you don't want to take a meeting, you just say you don't want to take a meeting. So I think it's important that all of us, pay respect to other people's lives and the importance of them having a balanced life. So you need to give people time to have their personal life also. That is one. And also you need to prioritize what is important in your life. Like for me, it was really important for me to spend time with my family, spend time on my hobbies, spend time on my health. So like that, I have prioritized and I make sure that we can use all those days. So now one thing that I used to ask a lot of my colleagues when I was working is, how many days leave have you taken, right? And lots of people used to say, I haven't taken any. Very proudly, they would say, I haven't taken any leave, boss. I have come to work every day. Idiots. And I say, you're an idiot. Sri Lanka has the most number of public holidays. I believe we have 22 public holidays, including the POAs, right? And we have 21 days of leave. So if you can't patch in those days here and there to get nice long breaks every month, if you so desire, there's something radically wrong with you. And you have to realize that in an organization, you may be the CEO or anything like that, but you are a commodity, you're a number. At the end of this week, if Sarinda Unamboowe leaves this organization, they'll get somebody else to fill the organizational slot, the void that I have created, and the organization bats on. But what have you sacrificed? Thinking that you're so special, what have you sacrificed in your life along the way?
Your time.
So it is up to us, exactly. And those are things you will never get back. My children, right? My children are now 30 and 33. Along the way, I was able to spend quality time with them, take them on holidays, spend time at home with them. We used to cook together. We used to clean houses, all kinds of shit together, play in the garden with the dogs, whatever it may be. But we had time for each other. And I'm happy to say, and I'm very proud to say that at 30 and 33, they still have time for me. We go and, of course, now the things are a little different. We sit down, have a drink, or, chat or go on holidays. We go on vacations a lot because we have a common interest in wildlife. So it is very important that we make sure that we prioritize what is important in our life, and then as CEOs we have the authority to be able to do it, but we have to also give that same respect and time for other people to balance their lives.
So that's a very insightful thing. No, don't waste your time. As in, have time for yourself and your family, and not just worry about the titles that your job has to give you. So
Absolutely.
Sri Lanka is going through a very tough time. So with the economic crisis and everything. So something very important I had to ask you is, what advice do you have for youngsters these days so that they can face the future?
So I think, when you have lived in Sri Lanka for 50 odd years, like I have lived in, you have seen these cycles. Been through the 70s where Mrs. Bandaranaike took us down the socialist experiment, and we had to dig up our gardens and do all kinds of stuff, grow manioka in the gardens. So have gone through the LTT war, we went through the JVP issues, we had insurrections, we had Gotabaya coming and doing his dance there for a while and destroyed the country with the aid of Cabral and all those idiots. So we have been through all these things. This country will come out. It will come out. Have some confidence, have some faith. And because it's a tiny economy in global sense. It doesn't take a lot. It takes one, if not two, large investments to come into this country. Overnight, we will change, right? If the tourism sector picks up a little bit, it'll change. There are so many factors that can influence the change in this country. If we piggyback on the Indian economy that is booming, we will change. So we just have to have faith that this country is going to come out at some point. If you want to, leave the country and go off to whatever country and make a life for it, all the best, good luck, and I hope it works out. I know lots of people who have done it and are very successful, and I have a lot of respect for them, because leaving and going is not an easy thing. At my age, it's very easy because I don't have to worry about these things. I'm pretty much I should be retiring, which I never want to, but I'm doing it more for fun than for anything else. But if you're going to start a life, then all the best to you. Having said that, if you want to take a risk and stay on here, the opportunities, as I said earlier, there is going to be opportunities opening up to you that you have never seen before. So be brave, stick through this, but gather qualifications, gather knowledge, gather experience, because those are things that can never be taken away from you.
So audience, this might be your last chance to speak to him personally and ask your questions. So if there are any questions you have to ask from this,
you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can inbox me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Now would be a good time to ask him. So we also have a question here. Mr. Ajala, hi Sarinda. Would like to know how to use social media for the betterment of life and career.
So that is something that I feel very strongly about. I think social media, to gather knowledge, to gather information, and to gather, especially when it comes to businesses or current affairs or politicians or opinions, it's a great place. But don't go down that rabbit hole of getting caught up in arguing with all kinds of idiots on social media and trying to prove how smart you are. Gather your knowledge there. The other thing that you can do is you build your brand on social media. Nethila, you're a classic example. Right? You have built your brand. Brand Nethila has been built on social media. You have used this to your advantage. This is an opportunity that this generation has that we never had. If we wanted to build a brand, you had to take a 200,000 rupee ad in a newspaper, and about 20 people saw it. Here, you have the opportunity of creating an image for yourself, a brand for yourself, marketing yourself, gathering knowledge, but use it wisely, because it is a rabbit hole that if you go down, you can get lost in. You just need to be very focused where you're going with it. Do not ignore social media. You have to be on social media. You have to be a part of the conversations going on. You have to stay current.
The thing about social media is it's you can advertise, you can spread your brand and everything, and it doesn't cost you anything. Not a single cent is taken from you. Massive advantage in today's generation. Not a single cent.
Huge advantage.
All just for free at the palm of your hand. All you need is a smartphone and some internet, and you can start sharing, start marketing, branding, everything.
Exactly. I think, you should pass on the question. Sorry, not pass on the previous question. You should have asked Nethila, because he's a guy who has used it brilliantly for his betterment of his brand and his potential career in the future. So it is something that you can't ignore. I know lots of CEOs who don't even get on social media. They don't even have accounts, right? They're not on LinkedIn. They're not on, Facebook, we say now is going down, is fading away. They're not on Instagram. They're not on Twitter. None of those things. And of course, then there are some idiot politicians who have TikTok accounts that are a damn disgrace. I don't know what kind of brand they are trying to build. But it is what people use it for all kinds of silly things. But if you are serious about building an image for yourself, here's the opportunity.
We have another question from Mr. Pasan. As a CEO, do you have any special daily routines on how you manage your personal life?
Yeah. So now, because I have a little more structure in my life, I'm starting from ground zero again. I have always tried to put exercise in my life at some point. So that is something that I've tried to do. I have tried, these are things again, Pasan, I can't put my hand on my heart and say that I do every day, but I try to spend about 10 or 15 minutes in kind of a self-reflection. I wouldn't want to call it meditation, because that would be an insult to meditation. My mind goes all over the countryside, but I just like to sit quietly and wait in a space where I'm not looking at any screens or anything like that. I keep my eyes shut and try to gather my thoughts and do that. The other thing that I do, Pasan, is I journal all the time. I'm constantly writing things down. And when I say writing, I'm physically writing things down, because one, I'm a very visual thinker, and two, when I write something down, it tends to stay in my head. So those are things that I do as a routine. Like, for example, I will write my thoughts for the day. I will write what I plan on doing the next day. Those things I write down so that there is some kind of discipline. I try to stay true to my calendar and stay focused on what I have to do the next day. And I absolutely hate being late. And I hate when people are late. Punctuality is really important. So I think each one of us has to figure out what is important and what they want to do. The new thing that I have started doing is I have started forcing myself, a habit that I did a lot when I was younger, but I'm back to it, is to read. And I've been buying books on fairly interesting subjects, and even things just to educate myself on history and current affairs and people. I read. I try to read 30, 40 pages a day at least.
I hope you got your answer, Mr. Pasan. And we have another question here. What do you do on a daily basis to update your knowledge as CEO?
So, Dinesh, that is some of the conversations that we are having earlier. Like, for example, if I think a subject is becoming relevant, or something that is specific to my industry, if there is I will research it. I will try, and if I don't have the time to research it, I will get one of my colleagues who are a lot smarter than me to read through an article and summarize it and give me the detail. For example, right now I'm getting a little obsessed by what can be done and replaced by AI. So because when you're designing a new organization, you want to see what can be taken on by AI, and then you can use those resources for something else. So it is, one, you should know what's going on in the world around you. I like to read about human psychology. I like to understand people, and it helps me understand myself also. And constantly, if there's something new that comes out, a new technology or something like that comes out, I try to get updated and some knowledge on that. The other thing that I have done, Dinesh, is that when I was working in the last couple of places I worked, I had a group of youngsters who worked with me. And when I say youngsters, I'm 59, they were in their mid-20s. So I would sit with them and ask them lots of questions about what was going on and their view of the world. So it would give me kind of the two ends of the spectrum of how people saw the world as they lived it. So it's just about gathering. You have to figure out what is important, but gathering knowledge on anything is important on a continuous basis. Knowledge is absolute gold.
Okay, I hope you got your answer, Mr. Dinesh. And from Basan, we have his response. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. That's great. Okay. So I'm completely out of questions because I basically got the answer. I basically got your entire life story out of that, out of this conversation. So if the audience will wait for a couple of minutes to see if the audience has
Yeah.
anything else to ask. Speaking of which, what are the tricks you are using to balance family with profession from Mr. Ranga?
So no tricks as such, Ranga, because as I said, I try to take all the leave possible, and I plan leave with my sons. Of course, my situation is a bit different, Ranga. You look like a very young man. My children are probably your age. So for them also, they can plan their leave. I can plan my leave, and we plan our trips out. We have one big family holiday that we go overseas. We try to go overseas or somewhere in Sri Lanka together. And then we have mini holidays like 3 days, 4 days, a weekend somewhere like that. Or even they may come to my house and spend the weekend together. So we plan those out and make them happen. That is one. And taking your leave and making time for your family becomes the biggest trick. That is the one that you really need to commit yourself for. Because I read somewhere that they had interviewed a whole bunch of people. A nurse had interviewed people who were facing death. And I think she had done a research on like 4,000 people she had been talking to, or 400 or whatever it may be. But the gist of it is they had been asked what are the regrets, that are the things you wish you had done better. And time with family, time with friends, spending more time on your personal health were among the top 3 things that came up. Nobody said I should have worked a little longer, I should have worked another overtime, I should have not taken my leave. Nobody says that shit. Nobody says that stuff. And believe me, there are lots of people in organizations who will work late because the boss is working late. They will look to see whether the boss has left the room, and if the boss hasn't left the room, they're seated there and they're on their phones playing video games or texting their girlfriends or boyfriends. So it's stupid, that whole thing of, I'm a big fan of working from anywhere, not from home or not from office or wherever. Work from anywhere, as long as you can do your work and deliver it. And I feel that the physical contact is also essential. So a hybrid work situation where you come to work for 2 or 3 days and you're given the freedom to work 2 or 3 days from wherever would be ideal. If you can work in an organization that does that, fabulous. That's what we are trying to create. That's what we had created at the last workplace. I used to go to work once a week. Did the organization suffer? No. Did work suffer? No. Did we progress? Yes, we did. I used to go to factory visits. I used to go and spend time in the factories. But when I was in Colombo and working out of where I was supposed to be at meetings or whatever, I would be at home. It gave me time to be with my family. It gave me time to do lots of things that I wanted to do. So the balancing becomes something. It is fairly common sense approach, and it's entirely your responsibility.
Okay. So I hope you got your answer. We have another question from Ms. Sherin. What do you do to improve the culture in an organization avoiding politics?
If you're the CEO of the organization, politics will happen if you tolerate politics. Right. First, the culture. What is a culture? Is Sherin, just to be very simple about what we describe as culture, it is organization. It is the actions, whatever we tolerate in an organization. So, and whatever we encourage in an organization. So, if we encourage open, honest dialogue, no abusing each other, no being backstabbing, that kind of culture, then that is what will be created. But to make sure it continues is you can't have a double standard. You can't tell people, okay, if we are going to have conflict, we're going to sit down and we're going to sort it out. And then on the other side, you can't have the person coming and say, boss, this bug is doing this and this one is doing that. And then you go and say, I heard you're doing this, and start shouting at that person. You're going to defeat the whole purpose. If you create an organizational culture of openness, honesty, integrity, all those things, you have to live that. And you have to make sure it does. If somebody carries a tale to you and says, these people are doing this, you have to say, okay, we are going to call them, we are going to have a chat, and we're going to see what's going on. And if you start doing that, there are 2 schools. Some people say that you should encourage people coming and like whistleblowers coming. Whistleblowing is a different thing. That is like if there's sexual harassment or theft or something like that, where you get information. That's a different thing. You can't tolerate. That's a different subject. But in general, in a work environment, you shouldn't create an environment where someone knows they can trigger an action by coming and sneaking to you. You should be able to have it as an open discussion with the people who are having the issue. So driving that, first you have to be able to articulate that culture, shape it, and say this is what it looks like. And then if people are stepping outside, you need to say, you need to get back into this cultural framework that we are working within. Otherwise, it's going to be detrimental to the organization and to you. And we as senior leaders have to be able to live those values that we're trying to drive in through our culture. Sharin, I hope I answered your question.
We have another question from Ms. Isro. What do you do when you feel down and low? Who all are in your closest network apart from your closest family?
So I'm going to share something with you guys that is very personal to me, Isru. And I'm let me just say that I am a person who suffered a lot of depression. I went through some serious clinical depression and went through a lot of issues. I've had mental health issues, let's put it that way. So at that time, there were times where I could barely even get myself out of a room. I couldn't even come out. I couldn't function. I was sensible enough at that time first to go and get professional help. I got professional help. I have been on and off to this day, even now, I have a psychologist that I work with. So even now, if I feel that I have some problem that is bothering me, or, sometimes you wake up and you're just like, something, I just feel shit. I don't know why. And you're wondering why. Talk to somebody. And a professional is always good because a professional will be unbiased. And the right professional will help you work through those issues. That is one. And I have gone to a therapist for over 22 years and I still do. So now that person has become like a coach. So when I have ideas, I bounce off that person. And still, if I feel that I have issues that I need to sort out, I talk to them. The other thing is I have a very, very close, very tight group of friends. So when I need to lift my mood and I go and meet my friends, I'm no longer a CEO of an organization, or somebody is not doctor, someone who's the head of surgery at some hospital, or somebody else is not the chairman of some organization. We're all like Matta, Gotta, Mutti, whatever it is, all the nicknames come out. Everybody is equal, and you have a couple of drinks and have a chat and a laugh, and the world is in a good place. No? So that close network of friends is really important. And I'm really fortunate that my family, my two boys and my partner, and their partners, my boys' partner, we can discuss stuff. When we have issues, we talk about it. We talk to each other. So that network is very supportive as well. That support network is very, very, very important. Trying to sort out these issues alone is difficult. Opening up to your family, opening up to your children and your partner and saying, I have a problem, we need to talk about this, it's really bothering me, is also very difficult. But once you have done it once, you can do it again. And it gets easier and easier and easier. And it's just the most comfortable thing on the planet after that.
Okay.
So
they got the answers. We have the thank yous. So I think that's all for today's LinkedIn Live session with Cinnamon Chat. So I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Sarinda. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I know you're a very busy person, and you're a top CEO and all that.
I'm not busy. Saturday, I'm not busy at all.
No, even you have your own busy time. So I know you definitely have to make time for this and all of that. So I really appreciate it a lot. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And
my pleasure.
The audience, thank you very much for joining in and tuning in. So with that, we'll end off the session. Thank you very much again, Mr. Unamboowe.
My pleasure. Thank you.